Hello, Barons. Ever wondered what it would be like walking the hello fairways of Augusta alongside Tiger, and not just once? Or the tingles of making your way up Magnolia Drive knowing what's to follow? Or being fired 6 times in a hole and banned from speaking by your boss? Well, Kipper's done it all, and he's with us today with a caddy's guide to the Masters. And I better correct myself, it was the hallowed fairways, not the hello fairways, although I'd love to say hello to them. Kipper, how are you going?
It wasn't 6 times, it was 6 times on the first hole. So, yes, good to be here, Mr. Phillip. And God, I love Masters Week.
It is a great week, and it's a great week. And unfortunately, our other man, Shooter, can't join us because he's slaving away on season 3.
Yes, about to be out the old season 3. It's exciting.
Not far away. Well, if he does his job and tweaks the right tweaks, it's about to be out. He's got to try and make me 11% better looking, which will take me up to 12%.
And he's got a lot of work to do on my vocals and any of my pronunciation.
Word usements like emancipation. Anyway.
Exactly right.
Anyway, so we're going to get straight into it. So basically, here's how this is going to work is I'm just going to throw questions at you because this is as close as I've ever got to Augusta, is a mate bringing me back a stubby holder, which is magnetic. And by the way, if you ever have the chance, you've got to get yourself a magnetic Augusta stubby holder. But you've got a bit closer than that. So now here we go. So winners are allowed to invite a guest for the round on the Sunday before the Masters. It's a tradition that they can bring a guest along. Given how close you are to the Shark, how come he's never invited you? Now, that was brought to you by the lovers of SGL and Shark and Norman.
You just said winners.
Yeah, exactly right. And I just wanted to rub that in because I'm trying to shake the hate because I watched the replay of 86, 87, 96.
We honestly, I think most Australians remember where they were. I do. I was in a pro shop at Dorset Golf Course, a public course. It's actually built on a tip. And I still remember being in that pro shop early morning. I opened up and just was I don't think I've ever been more angry in a setting in my life. People were coming in to play golf, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Why aren't you watching the game?" And then it just all fell to pieces.
I do still love the fact. So I loved in '86 the sweat. You could see him getting more and more nervous, and it was reflected in '96 with the gripping and the Sorry, this is not about Norman. This is almost all that Norman will be spoken about until we get to the worst shots ever in Masters history. But the idea of knowing that everyone's watching and the gripping and re-gripping. But here's the question: which champion who has won the green jacket would be most likely to invite Kipper for a round at Augusta on the Sunday before the Masters?
Geez, not many of them. I reckon I could get a Guernsey from Adam occasion, or maybe. And, I'd like to say Sergio, but I'm sure that he's got other friends that he highly rates above me. But me and Sergio used to hang out a lot when we were young. I haven't seen the guy for, literally for basically 10 years since I've been over there. But, we used to hanging a lot. So the Surge is probably my first phone call.
Right. Okay. So here's your challenge before next year. One is you have to make contact with Sergio and ask him whether he's a fan of Golf Barons. So that's the first thing, because if the answer to that is no, he's what? And secondly, you have to get on at Augusta on the Sunday before the Masters. You have to just plead with him and say, well, you can't take your mates again. Surely you've run out.
Well, I was supposed to be play there a few times, but it just never happened. With Bads a couple of times, he was going to get me a run, and even Allenby was going to get me on there once upon a time, but never eventuated. So I'm still high and dry from playing the great course.
But based on the stories you've told of Allenby, it would be likely that he'd say, "Come on, we're playing Monday. I got you on," and then you'd get there, and there'd be the white overalls. And he's
it'd be a stitch up.
Oh, did I mean that you were playing? No. You just get to caddy for me again.
Yeah, it'd be a stitch up for sure.
Okay, so moving right along from that. So Operation Sergio, you've got 12 months to go.
Easy.
So Serge, I'm happy to caddy for you. and Shooter can caddy for Sergio. Now, given that Augusta, so obviously it's loosening up a little bit, and given that they allowed the Dude Perfect team to come and film their antics with Bryson DeChambeau and all the rest at Augusta, if Golf Barons were to be given an opportunity to do some filming at Augusta, What do you think? What challenge or myth do you reckon would we prioritise and film at Augusta? What is the one thing that you could have the most fun doing at Augusta
Well,
as golf parents? Because apparently they're going to let us do it.
oh yeah, easy. Honestly, it'd be something around Amen Corner. Right? The challenge would be simply this: to get through playing it less than a double bogey a hole. Right? that'd be the challenge, right? Just see if you can get through those 3 holes, 6 over the card, and that's it. Because I reckon someone, including me, would have a 10 on one of those holes.
Yeah. So, mate, can you avoid a 10? So
Yeah.
you get to, so maybe that's the point: is can you avoid a 10?
And you only have to play 3 of them. Right.
But there's got to be cameras everywhere so that you start to feel the pressure. Or we've actually just got to pretend that we're Norman and just see whether we can actually push through. I'm going a little bit anti-Gregory.
Yeah, you got to lay off on the great Sharky. You had a mischief.
I do, and as soon as we get off to this, I've got to take the dog for a walk anyway. So we'll be fine. Now, what would Augusta rather us not know about? Is there a secret that Augusta would rather? Like they kind of think everyone knows, but they'd rather us not know?
I reckon, honestly, because of the world of social media and just media in general now, you find it a lot more things because people are posting about them. So there is I guess, secrets been uncovered about Augusta, but just, I guess, all courses and everything for a lot more over the last 20 years. But when I first went there in the late 90s, early 2000s, there were so many things you didn't know. Right, I didn't know, and no one really talked about the fact that they had telephones in trees. They did. You open up parts of a tree. It looks like a tree, but you open parts of it, and there's a phone in there. Right? And then you can ring up and order your food.
Get Smart.
Yeah, exactly like Get Smart. They have telephones. Cameras in trees. And back then, cameras in trees was just sort of unheard of, and yet again hidden, and they could spy on you all around the course. So there were certain things that were secretive. The whole place was quite secretive, really. The front nine, no one ever saw it. Like that was secretive. What does it look like? How come they don't show it? Because they wanted only patrons who go there to have something special to take from it. Well, that's really changed. For the betterment, really. We now know so much more. We get to watch the warm-ups. I love that on the range stuff they show now. It's just intriguing. But the one thing I think that still surprised me, I guess, and that they don't talk about that much. I'm sure some of our viewers or listeners will know about it. But they literally fake the blossoming of all of the flowers on the entire course, right? So, and the reason I know this is because the first year on tour over there playing Augusta, we got put up, or we got friends with these people and got put up to stay at Graham and Michelle, I think their names were. Anyway, they were basically, they run flower departments in Augusta, and their whole job for the year really is to make sure that the flowers bloom at the right time. And they bring in truckloads of ice, and they ice all the garden beds for weeks leading up if it's hot. If it's not hot, they bring in like heat pads. You know, when you go to bed and you put in a rice pad in your microwave and cook it, and then you cuddle your rice pad if your back's sore. They've got like huge ones, like 2-meter rice pad things that they heat up and they like.
So
it's incredible.
How big were Graham and Michelle's microwaves?
I know. Well, I actually don't know how they heat them up, but I assume it was in like a storeroom or something. I don't know. Yet again, another mystery. But yeah, they used to fake the blossoming so that they could bring it on or take it away. And the only time that I've not seen that happen was obviously the COVID year. And I had a giggle to myself because there was nothing in bloom, right? And I'm like, well, you can fake it to a point, but Mother Nature wins eventually if you take it in a different season.
Or they got fired.
Yeah, that's the only. So yeah, that'd be the only big thing I think. Still, it's quite secretive that those flowers will always be on show. I can promise you.
And what I suppose, as an extension of that, what don't you see in the coverage? I mean, now we've got pretty well full course coverage now because there's cameras everywhere. But what don't you see?
Well, you still don't see a lot of the, I guess, the infrastructure behind the main clubhouse. And what's actually quite surprising now, because I haven't been there to Augusta since, I think, 2007 or 8 was my last time there. And I haven't been there since. So that's a long time. And now the practice fairways are completely different to when I was there. They've got double ones, they've got clubhouses that kind of back onto the practice fairways. So they've got a lot more building and they've moved like that. That used to be a car park that one of the practice fairways is in. So, but around that area, like you've got to remember that they've got almost the most tractors that you've ever seen to mow a golf course, and they have them on one hole. So they've got huge storage facilities to not only house their equipment, but then some of the infrastructure that they need for the tournament. So you're talking about grandstands; they keep them, a lot of them on site, and then the marquees that they have for merchandise. Now, this is one little story that I love because it's unless you go, you never see it, right? And my first time on tour, we got there early, of course, a week or two early, and you could just see these huge tents in the I guess background area behind the clubhouse, and I'm like, oh, they must be corporate marquees. Of course, me just thinking about the corporate world that you have on every other golf tournament. They don't have corporates. They don't do corporates, right? There's no such thing as at Augusta being a corporate, right? You're just a patron. You go in, and everyone experiences the same stuff.
It's
so
like
these marquees, these marquees are only there for merchandise. So I got to go in this thing. And I went there, I think it was like the Monday or one of the days where there wasn't many people had got to the course that early, and there was really hardly anyone there. And I went into this marquee, and it's like walking into Bunnings, but for Augusta. And I'm not exaggerating. It is incredible the stuff you can buy. Teddy bears with Augusta logos. Anything you can think. Yeah, stubby holder. There you go. No, anything you can think of.
Yeah.
And I was like a kid in a candy store, and everybody is. So anyway, I went in there, bought me a bunch of stuff, a see-through cup. I got this, I got that, everything you can. And then I was talking to one of the green coats, we call them, but one of the officials, and he was telling me that they could make a lot more money if they sold, obviously, throughout the year, but they don't. They want to, yet again, give something to people that go to the tournament that no one else gets. So you can only purchase merchandise and Augusta logoed stuff if you go there. And he gave me some figures back in the 2000s, and he said that if he goes, however many patrons come in, they kind of keep that to their chest as well, how many hundreds of thousands come in there. But he said the average spend per person through that marquee back in 1999 or 2000 was $880 average spend, right? So, and then we did the math that week because we found out how many people. There was over $45 million in merchandise sold that week, according to what he told me, right? That's in a week, right? Not many stores are pulling 45 mil of sales in a week. So I understand now why they don't need to sell throughout the year.
Yes. Right.
Everyone just loads it when they go there. So, yeah, that's the infrastructure around what you can get there is they never show, and it's phenomenal.
Now, you told, just because you mentioned the green coats, and I know you've told this story before and potentially more than once in a podcast, but I love it and I want to hear it again. What was the story about the drinks being on the wrong side of the tee?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was Mickelson, and Bones McKay was telling me the story because he came off the course and he was in shock because what effectively happened is that they'd got down to the seventh tee. In the old days, the seventh tee, you could hit an iron off. It was quite a short hole. Now it's a bit longer, and the tee's back behind the sixth green. But the tee was forward of the sixth green, and it was really narrow tee box. Anyway, Phil jumped on there, wanted to hit an iron off the tee, wanted to shape for him a left-hander, wanted to shape a little cut down the fairway. So he wanted to be on the right-hand side of the tee box. So he went to tee up next to the little, the wooden stump they have down there that marks out where you can tee from. And the drinks can that you get your water from or whatever drink you want out of was right kind of in his way for a left-hander if he stood off the tee block. Now, he did. He stood off the tee block, but his ball was inside the hitting zone. So he just moved it about a metre, right? Anyway, goes on, plays the rest of the round, and then Bones is walking off 18, and there's thousands of people everywhere, and he's getting through the crowd, and he gets tapped on the shoulder by the green coat, and the green coat says, "Oh, when you've got time, can you come and see me?" And Bones is like, "Oh, you actually, that means come and see me now." so Bones is like, okay. So he walks off to the side, and the guy goes, "Look, on the behalf of Augusta National, we want to officially apologise for having the drinks canister in your way on the seventh tee, and And he goes, why did someone, it didn't matter to us at all. He goes, moved it. He goes, that should never happen. You should never have to be interrupted, playing this golf course. You should be able to play free and uninhibited the entire way. So we officially apologised for that. And he's like, well, how did you know? Who told you? He goes, oh, no, we just watched it on the cameras and thought we'd wait until the time was right to talk to you. So Bones is like, God, you can only imagine thinking about doing something out in the course. He goes, I've never, ever thought about hitting the ball or doing anything underwater because they'd be on me like nothing.
What do they do to because it's one event where you don't hear too much bubba booies and getting the holes and all the rest of it. Is that just you don't? Because it was interesting. Here's the context: is that we're watching the AFL. Buddy Franklin kicks his 1,000th goal, and everyone pours on from everywhere. And the game stops for 6.5 hours because a guy kicked a goal. Warney gets 700 wickets, and not one person thought of invading the pitch. So what happens? What's Augusta's version? Is it? I mean, obviously it's not Buddy where they pour on everywhere.
I can tell you what it is right now. You're frightened. No, you are. You're frightened as a patron. You're frightened as a caddy, and you're frightened as a player of doing anything wrong because you're never coming back. Right. The first year we were there, Bad's missus lips out on 18 to make the cut. The most devastating moment of my caddying career, and definitely probably his entire career. Because had he made the cut, he would have played real well on the weekend because I made him have a 4-putt on 10, which cost him the cut. We're going to get onto that. Anyway, long story short, misses the cut by a shot, and we've got tickets for the weekend. We've got heaps of them, about 5 or 6 tickets. Now, those tickets were selling for about $7,500 US a ticket, right? And so we're sitting there as two little young kids, no money, amateurs, right, thinking we've got 40 grand US in our hand here, right? But you can't sell them because they're all coded. When you go through, it gets scanned. They know who the tickets come from. They've got cameras there. They've got the whole lot. So, of course, they just go to waste because you can't do anything, away. You can give them away maybe, but you're not allowed to even do that half the time because they need to know who's coming. So we're back in those days. Anyway, what's annoying about it is you just can't afford to do anything wrong because you know that you're never going to be allowed back. So people toe the line. And that's why you don't hear stupid comments because that'll be the last time they ever go. They'll be out within a minute and that'll be it.
Have they got different sizes of green coats whereby they've got the guys in the triple extra large who swing in and just sort of pick people up and remove them?
You know what the best part of that is? No, I think to be one you have to be over 70 and you don't even need muscles or brawn to be able to get someone out of the venue. You just literally look at them. And that's enough. That's enough for that person to go, okay, I've had enough here. It's
the Augusta Mafia. Although I'd love to be invited there. So they're excellent. I find that their performance on every level and their professionalism is outstanding, everything at Augusta.
Well, they are. I got told off for lying down. We've told that story before because they just said, Augusta's for viewing, please don't lie down. So I had to sit up because I was tired on the par 3 course. So, yeah, they
and that was on the par 3 course?
Par 3 course. And I was about 50 metres away from any hole or tee box. I was just sitting on the bank and decided to lie backwards, and that was not in play. I didn't know.
So what's the ratio of green coats to patrons then? Like it's always onto you.
That's the best part of it, Philip. You can't see them. They're like little ninjas hiding behind trees. They could be in trees. I don't know. Like you don't know. They're just everywhere, but you don't see them. So, yeah, I don't know. Don't know how many there is.
I wish I could remember the name of the agent and get smart. Anyway, so there's a couple of things. Now just the only, not the only serious thing. Who wins?
You know what? It's got to a point where I think it can't be anybody but basically someone who's playing really solid at the moment because it's just I don't know. You got to get a run on with your play around Augusta. So you could really see someone that won't surprise many people like Cam Smith, for example. They're putting exceptionally well. They're hitting the ball pretty well. But the thing about Augusta is there's always someone out of that leading bunch that just hasn't done anything for ages that shows up. Now, whether they can get across the line or not, I don't know. Obviously, the big cat, he's actually extraordinarily confident. I watched his interview this morning. I don't know if I've seen him have as much bravado about his own game, minus the walking side of it, he's fully confident in the way he's hitting it and his entire game. So, I mean, it'd be an incredible story if he even contends, let alone, actually won. So I don't know. I'm terrible at these things.
Yeah, so just give us the name so we can move on.
I normally go with Tony Finau.
I'm sure he's playing.
I don't even know.
Well, to your point about normally needing to come in with form, but every now and again there's one who's coming in without form who's going to win. I'd like to congratulate formerly Xander Schauffele for getting the monkey off his back and finally winning a major.
I'd love to see him though. I mean, he's a jet, isn't he?
It'd just be nice to see him because I think he smiles like he actually is happy as opposed to like he's been told to.
And I reckon, I don't even know how to pronounce his name incorrectly, Jaakko Nieminen, I reckon he's a chance.
Newman.
No, he is. He's hitting the ball incredibly well.
Yeah.
So, he's a chance. I think I just saw before he's paired with the Tigger in the first round. So, that'll test him.
How would that test him? Because you might have a bit of experience about being paired with Tiger in the first round at a Masters.
Yeah.
What the hell goes on? And can you drop as many names as you can?
Well, I can drop lots here, but I think I was caddying twice now at Augusta where we've been paired with Tiger in the first round. Once with Bads, once with Allenby, 2000 and 2005. And it's just more of a show. But the thing about it is you actually can almost get in a bubble and play pretty solid. That's the one thing I will say, is when you're with Tiger as opposed to ahead of him or behind him, it's actually a lot easier. Because everyone, marshals and whatnot are really looking out for things. So they're clearing, if you're in the rough, they're clearing crowds before you get there. And they're paying a lot more attention to your ease of play. But plus you're in a bubble with him where you've really got to concentrate on your own game. Otherwise you'll get caught up. If you just watch, if you sit back and be a spectator watching him play, you never play that well. So you sort of almost, it's good. You get the blinkers on for yourself. And the course gets its own blinkers on because the security and everything's doing its own thing and the crowds have got to be looked after. But if you're ahead of him, that's the worst because people are running up on you all day. No one cares about you at all. And behind him is also a bit challenging because all you ever, it's like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's like you're just the pathetic little golfer that's trailing. Like you just see the crowds continually running off on you and the roars and the whatnot. And then you tap in for birdie and there's someone that stayed behind because they get a bit puffed chasing and then you just hear that, that's your Bronx cheer. So it's, I don't know. It's playing with him. I don't think is as hard as being in front of behind him.
So you get the people recovering from COVID who all of a sudden are the biggest fans of your work just because you happen to be in the group.
Right. They stick around and look at the brochure. Oh, who's this bloke coming through? Well, watch him.
So what was the aura like? I mean, where did panic set in at any stage? So you're standing on one tee. As soon as you knew you were paired with Tiger, was there obviously you're dealing with two players who are elite anyway in Bads and Allenby, so it's not the first time they'd played.
Well, I think for me as a caddy in both of those instances, I actually felt quite calm, and I think to be fair, both of my players did too, because at that point, Bads was the number one player in the world amateur wise, and he was playing exceptionally well. Like he hit the ball, didn't have to worry about poor performance, I suppose is the best way of putting it. And Allenby in 2005 was one of the hottest players in the world. Just come off the Triple Crown, he'd nearly won TPC. So we came to Augusta with a different headspace. We would come to Augusta thinking we could win it. So those two instances, it was more, right, let's go. We're playing with the greatest player in the world here. So what a perfect test. But I reckon if you're playing a bit scratchy and you know it, and you somehow get paired with him, the worst is if you get paired with him in the third round. Yeah. Because he's had a bit of a shocker, made the cut by a shot. And you've made the cut by a shot by sinking a bomb on the last, and all of a sudden you're paired with Tigger in round 3, and in the back of your mind you're like, please don't shoot 85. That's definitely different than going in with a hot ticket knowing you can play. So, I think it comes down to your general, performance.
Because a very close friend of the show, not that he knows it, but Chewy, in being on Cam Davis's bag, had the joy of having Tiger join him for a few holes in the practice round. And via another mate of mine, Fraser, it came back that, sort of how did that come about? And everything just got held up in the practice round. And before you know it, you look behind you and Tiger's playing, and then creeping up and do you want to join? Do you want to join? Oh, can I join in your group? Oh, yeah. Look, I was looking to play with a couple of mates, but yeah, that's okay. We've got a gap. So he no doubt would have been nervous asking permission to play a few holes. But in terms of that nervousness, is there an aura that he's got? Because I remember many years ago, Greg Norman walked past. I remember at the might have been the Heineken or something at Royal Melbourne, and I felt him walking before he got to me.
Mm-hmm.
Does Tiger have that?
Yeah, there's very few people, or I think anyway, like athletes, I guess, in the world that have that presence, and he's definitely one of them. I mean, you got your Jordans and your people that you're like, almost you're taken aback. You notice something about them. Oh, geez, he's smaller than I thought, or he's taller than I thought, or he's this, or he's that, and you're sort of a bit awestruck, I suppose. Tiger's got it because obviously he's probably the greatest ever lived, but it's also I don't know, like he's very what would be the word? He's not abrupt, but he's very matter of fact in the way he will talk to you on a tee box or walking off a tee box. There's no chit chat. There's no like, well, what did you do yesterday? Did you go to the shopping mall? There's none of that. Right? Yeah. It's just you've either got something to say to him or you haven't, and vice versa. And so I think it's almost hard to break the ice chatting with him. So from that point of view, when you're actually playing with him, it's even a bit harder because you don't want to stuff up and say something stupid and silly. So, yeah, like I remember like for a little caddy, it's even worse because you're nothing really. You're not a player. You're not good enough to be there. You're just toting a bag trying to help someone who can.
Wearing a white dress.
That's right. And in Ellermy in 2005, it all got a bit tough for us around the turn, and walking up 13, and I'm just like, well, I've got to say something here. I just have to. So I'd seen his boat the week prior down in the harbour in Florida, and his boat is incredible. Like it's the size of about 15 houses. Anyway, so I thought that's my opening. So I led with that, walking up the fairway on 13. I said, geez, I caught your boat the other day, Tigger. I said, it's incredible. He's like, and he just straight away into it because he must have felt it as well. Yeah. He's like, oh, thanks, I appreciate that. I'm like, yeah. I said, what do you got on that thing? Can you land a chopper on it? And I just started talking, and we literally talked for the next hole and a half. And that hadn't happened in all of the other encounters that I'd ever talked to Tiger on a golf course. It was always he'd answer your question and that would be it. And that's because he's obviously concentrating and all the rest of it. But he probably he clearly needed a bit of a buck up there as well. Yeah. And stuffed me drunk on the 14th hole. So another couple of holes later, he holes out on the second shot. So he hits driver and then he hits an 8-iron in the hole for eagle. And, of course, the crowd goes Ken Bruce. And of course, I had a bit of rapport. So the Dion runs up with a big high five. And I'll never forget that because I'm like, had I not had that, it would have been like, do you high five? What do you do? Yeah, do you hug the person? Do you just But no, I went in for the big high five. So, that was timely.
And was that when he replied with, well, tomorrow I'm going to Macca's. I'd like me to take you through the drive-through.
Yeah, no. Excuse me. It was a classic. But that shot was incredible because he only had about a foot to land it because the pin was high left on 14. And it's one of the most impressive hole-outs I've ever seen because he just didn't have a spot to hole that shot from.
So you gave him the right yardages. It's just while you were doing that, poor old Allenby, you said, did I say +5? I meant -5 yards. And all of a sudden he's plugged it in the face and missed the cut by 7. Moving on, because it can't all be about Tiger. What's the hardest shot on the entire golf course?
I reckon there's two. That shot actually on 14, when the pin's hard left on 14, what's really difficult to see there is that there's the huge tier in the front that takes up half of the green, that if you're short of halfway through that green, it just comes straight back to you. So that's one part of 14, but it's got also 3 tiers on the top level, like steps that go down to the right. So if your pin's cut hard left, it's really difficult because you've got to kind of almost swing a draw in there to hold the tier. But if you go too far, you finish left of the pin and you're just dead because it's all downhill with a chip shot, and it'll almost like steps continue to run down 30, 40 feet away. So I think the shot on 14, if the pin's cut left, is extremely difficult. And the one I would not like to hit is the shot on 5, my approach shot. That green is brutal on 5. Huge false front again. Half the green is just a massive elephant on the middle of the putting green. And then the back tier, which is where the pin is always, you've literally got 5 to 7 yards to land that thing. So, and sometimes coming in there with a 5 iron, like, yeah, that's the shot I reckon that I would pretty much take triple bogey on each time.
Yet, surprisingly, they're both shots that Norman never had any trouble with. It's just that he had trouble with some of the others. So, which leads
that's your 4th Norman. That's it, you're banned.
What's the worst shot you've ever seen hit at Augusta, either via coverage or live, and how many of them were by Norman?
No, well, coverage-wise, looking at the footage, one of the worst shots you'd have to say, a couple of Spiethys dumps. I just, my heart broke for him. But he just, they were just extraordinarily poor shots, weren't they? And hit about 3 inches behind the ball. They were as bad as a dump gets. So they're up there. Live, worst shot I've seen live. Just trying to think if we've hit one or if the players hit one. I think one that sticks to my mind is we had a trap shot on 16, and it was Rory Sabatini, and he was in the front trap, and he took 5 or 6 because he thinned one over the back, and then he couldn't get under the top tier in the second, and it just compounded his problem. So live would have been Rory Sabatini, but yeah, from a vantage point of lately, anyone on TV, it'd probably Spiethy.
So where would Norman's second shot into 18 in 1986 rank, you reckon, in the list of most disastrous shots when under pressure that anyone's ever hit?
Yes, disastrous. I mean, that is a disastrous shot because he obviously hit it way right, had the wrong club, went easy on it, opened it up, and away it went.
Other than that, he flushed it.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. Like when I think of disastrous shots, he still had a way of, it was a bad miss because where he put himself, but it didn't end there, right? He could still truck on, whereas some players, it just ends their tournament. Like, I think back to even poor old, what's his name? Little fella.
Tommy Nakajima. You're not going to go down there.
No, he played with, I think, Tiger in the last round when Tiger won in 2020. He had the tournament in control. Molinari.
Yes. Oh, yeah. When Molinari.
His capitulation. Like, they're worse shots, in my opinion, than a flail right of Norm's. Norm's was a poor decision, I reckon, and then Steve Williams will tell you, it was a poor decision before he hit it that cost him that shot. Shouldn't have hit that club. But he still, just opened the blade. But those other ones are like, that's it, you're done. But he still had a chance to get up and down. He still had a chance to, get in a playoff. But once you start to, have shots that go in water there over and over, you I don't know. It's almost like you might as well just hand your bag back to your caddy and go, right, we're just walking in. That's it, we're done. We're finished.
Now you mentioned, I was going to bring up 96 because one of my other favourite Norman shots was his second shot into 9 in 96, where he landed it probably only 15 metres shorter than he should have and spun it down the front and then pretended that he got unlucky. But on the day he was playing with Faldo, and you've referred to in the past in conversations about playing a practice round with Faldo and a practice round with Appleby. Now, you mentioned that Appleby told you everywhere not to go. Is he the expert on telling you where not to go, or was Faldo, my perception of Faldo being Captain Negative, much the same?
Yeah, so different, those two around. We played practice round back to back, actually. One with that was White stuck out so much. One with Appleby, 2001, I think it was, and then 9 holes the next day with Nick Faldo when I was caddying for Bads, and it was a different. I mean, I know Faldo had done extremely well around there, so he probably had a sense of calmness as well. And Appleby was trying to help Aaron so much, so he was really trying to tell him all the places not to go, so that Aaron could strategize the places he should go. So they were just coming at it from different ways to achieve the same objective. But Faldo's ability to talk about how to strategize around that course was unbelievably good and so calming. Like, he would, how he sort of talks soft, Like he's a soft sort of, okay, we're going to
Close talker.
like that. Yeah, close talker. Yeah, he sort of had a soft approach to the game as well. Like
Right.
it was really nice to walk around and hear him. Like, for example, we played a back nine with him and had a shot into 15. Bads had a shot into 15, and so did Faldo's second shot into the par 5. But it was like the way Faldo would talk to him about playing this shot, like a smooth eye bomb draw, and you want to hit it here and land it sort of 15 feet inside the bunker and draw it across the slopes and towards that centre part of the green. If it catches the slope, it's going to then feed another 15 or so feet, and you'll get a good 30, 40 feet of roll left to right to left. But the way he was talking to him about it, it was like artistry. And
Yeah.
Aaron got over I think we had a 4-iron in the practice round, I can't remember. But Aaron got over the shot, and it was like all of a sudden I had the utmost sense of calm going, oh, he's got the shot. It's the easiest shot in the world. Just hit out there on the right and just feel it. Like it was such an easy shot. Now, if Bads had turned to me and said, oh, you want to hit this? Like, there's no chance I'm hitting that green ever. Like, I'm dumping it in the water every time or thinning it and it's going over the green into the back water on 16. But Faldo's ability to be able to talk about a shot or a strategy of play and have it sort of make it sound easy, that's what really shocked me about that 9 holes. I mean, you're playing one of the toughest 9 holes and one of the most strategic 9 holes in the world, and yet the way he thought about each shot was just calming. So, yeah, it was really stood out to me, Aaron.
Whereas Appleby says, if you dump it in that trap, you're dead. If you're hitting over there, you're dead.
Yeah,
don't go under that tree.
Exactly right. And that's Apples is a personality too. He's up and about and he's talking. He talks a lot. Like that's so the way he was describing, of course. Like, make sure you don't miss it here because if you miss it there, the ball's going to roll off. You'll take 10 if you block it right there. But yeah, it was a different way of explaining where to go and a real, I don't know, like a real artist's way of explaining it, and just sort of gave me an insight into Faldo. We never played with him again, Faldo held his cards pretty tight to his chest his entire career, really. But it gave me a sense of why he was as good as he was. He was just methodical, but he was really quite calculating and calm.
So really what should have happened is that Appleby learnt his way to navigate around Augusta thanks to Norman telling him where not to go. So he just tried to pass it on. It's just neither of them could actually do it. As a caddy, so Augusta as a caddy, where does it rate, and in terms of importance of your role as a caddy when you go around Augusta, how critical is it?
Well, I'll say two things about this. For me personally, it's the most intense and diligent you have to be as a caddy in order to help your player, win. But then you look at some of the players that have won with, like Jack Nicklaus is a great example, 86, with Jackie on the bag. Jackie was a good player and he obviously knew his craft. But I reckon Jack was listening to himself a lot down the stretch, more than being, let's call it, have his hand held by a caddy. Whereas you see Michael Gradier and Spiethy more as a unit. So there's different roles a caddy will play. Jackie that day with Jack was just a wonderful day for him and a wonderful day for Jack, like being father and son out there in contention on a major. So a sense of calm, that's all Jack needed. Being a strategic player in Spiethy, he needs more than that. So caddies have different roles, and excuse me. And I found my role at Augusta, became quite strategic with the players I caddied for there because of how precise they were as individuals anyway, right? I mean, Allenby was one of, if not the greatest ball striker I've ever seen or witnessed live, and his ability to control a distance on a shot, I've never caddied or seen anyone as good as that. So I had to be right on the money with not only the yardages, but with the guesswork on the yardages, the air temperature, the elevation changes, the humidity in the air.
Pressure.
Absolutely. I had to be really on that. So I'd get up in the mornings at 4 and 5 in the mornings and download stuff from the weather station when it was changing, and the good old hectopascals and you name it. I was looking at it. And just to be across it as the day changed and as the Augusta heated up, because that's one thing about Augusta. It goes from cold to hot real quick. Quicker than maybe anywhere that I've seen, to be honest. I'm not sure why that is there, but you can have a hot day and a cold day within a few hours, and extraordinary temperature change. So you've got to be across that in terms of ball flight. So as a caddy, I found it extremely intense. Putting is another thing with the lay of the land and reading greens, and some of the slopes. The putt breaks 4 ways. It's in so many courses you play where you're like, okay, let's talk about the putt here. It's breaking 4 ways. It's a hard conversation to have.
How did you ever manage to read a putt without straddling the line 75 times, facing 5 different directions and holding multiple different fingers up at different points in time and holding the field up? How did you ever get through? How did Bads, as the best putter in the world, ever? Sorry, I just got to get this off me. How did he ever survive and become the best putter in the world without straddling the line 800 times, as kids are now doing, and holding up 5 fingers and 4 fingers, and then sometimes they're together and sometimes they're apart? I just don't understand how he ever coped.
Well, you'll love this, right? Because the last time that I trained with Bads was in 2014. Excuse me, frog in my throat. And this sums up why he could putt as well as he could putt, and why there's a bit of an issue going on with all this green reading. I get over to Arizona. He's on the putting green. I'm having a putting comp with him, and I notice all of a sudden that he's not even looking at the hole ever. And I mean ever. We would go, let's go over to there, and he just put his head down and hit the putt, and not lining it up. So I said to him, mate, you've changed your routine a bit. He goes, yeah, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm just not looking at the break. I'm like, well, how do you know where it's going? He goes, you just know. And I'm like, oh yeah. And he goes, and proceeded to towel me up on the putting green, right? Yeah. And because his awareness of slope and his environment was incredible, right? So, look, there's some merit to people being very analytical. I get that. But some of the greatest in anything they do are just good at it because they're good at it. And Aaron's ability to just know where to hit a ball on a putting green because he can kind of see the slope, feel the speed, and understand the undulation was nearly second to none that I'd witnessed. So, yeah, the old finger up and straddle the putt, and he would laugh at that. Okay. Or he does laugh at that.
Yeah. More to the point, he does laugh at that because he knows that he's got them covered if it ever comes down to a putting competition.
Oh, absolutely does, yeah.
So what's the biggest mistake, getting back to caddies, what's the biggest mistake a caddy will make this week at Augusta that will have an impact on their player? What do they need to be aware of? What do I need to tell Chewy to not do with Cam Davis?
The biggest mistake a caddy can make is not saying what he thinks, because it'll happen. It'll happen, I would say, every 3rd or 4th hole if there's a slight breeze. And Stevie Williams honestly really opened my eyes to how open and honest you have to be, but also how accepting you have to be to failure, because you will stuff up, but you've got to be in a position. Yeah, you've got to be in a position to never regret what happened, right? And therefore, if you feel a breeze on the back of your neck while your player's over the ball and about to hit it, and you've already taken 40 seconds to do your stuff, and you know that's going to cause an issue with the rest of the group and all the rest of it, you've got to say it. And so therefore, my biggest tip to any caddy out there over the week is, if you think it, say it. Because you can always have a discussion over how that's not the case, but you can never take it back once it's done and the ball goes in the water or goes long or they take double. So, yeah, think it, say it. It's your must do at that course.
Well, that's awesome. Now, there's 3 Australian rookies. In Minwoo Lee and Lucas Herbert and Cam Davis. What advice would you give them heading into the week that they won't hear if they only talk to another player?
Yeah, probably carry the ham and cheese sandwiches, at least 2 or 3 of them in the bag. That would be those ham and cheese sandwiches are wonderful at the little tuck shops around the joint. So get them in your bag. That's the first tip. The second tip would be try not to overthink. Really try not to overthink the course. That'd be my biggest tip. And I think that's what happens the more you play there, because you'll go one way or the other. You'll either start to see some clarity in the way to play it, or you'll start to see some issues with every shot. Yeah. I remember the first few times that I caddied with Aaron. We played with Phil Mickelson the first 4 or 5 times around that joint. We went there a few weeks early and had game after game with Phil. And Aaron didn't shoot anything but, I think his worst score was like 3 under. His best score was like 6 or 7 under. the first 4 or 5 times we played it. And I can tell you now, the conditions weren't too different to tournament day. Greens were maybe a little slower, but that's about it. Tees were the same, grass was the same, wind was the same. But he just played golf. You see it, hit it. But the more you're out at that course and the more you have some bad experiences, the more that can play a role. And then you can also start to play protective golf, and then you're gone at that track. Whereas the greats, the real greats, the ones that win it multiple times, they just learn how to play it and they think about what to do in a positive light rather than, geez, I've seen myself hit it there before. They put that out of their mind. So, yeah, I would just say the biggest tip to those three young lads is go play your game and try not to overthink it. If you've got a number that your caddy's given you and you like it, hit it, trust it and play.
And talking about overthinking it, what's going on with Spiethy? I'm just going to, this is purely just a coaching question that I need to also ask. There's some weird gear going on. And the other day I Googled what's going on with Spiethy's weird gear thing on the range, backswing thing. And Google, using its AI, knew exactly what I was talking about and immediately fed me the videos. What is he trying? Because I think he's actually a real chance. Dead set, he will finish top 5 if he doesn't win it. Or he'll miss the cut by 15. What's going on from a coach's perspective?
Two things I'll preface here is one is that I got no idea because I'm not privy to anything he's working on. So I will give that as a disclaimer. But my take on it is this, is I think by that weird takeaway, weird backswing, weird halfway back and weird transition, what he's trying to do is take the arms a little deeper on the backswing, not the club, but the arms, a little deeper on the backswing, right, to enforce an early turn in his chest cavity and hip. He's trying to stand the club more upright as he does that. So he takes it deeper, but he doesn't get the club laid off or flat. So he's taking it in, but leaving it steep. And once he takes it in and steep, there's only one way for that club to go for a good player once he gets to the top, which is a very big layoff and shallow, which follows suit with his big bowed or supinated left hand. So he's trying to guard against taking the club out a little bit with his arms, rotating a little bit with his arms, which shallows the club too early. He doesn't then get turned. The club is too laid off, and he basically gets very almost pulley and cutty across that ball coming down. So I think that's what the drill's designed to do, but I honestly have no idea because I'm not his coach.
And it's worth looking like that and getting laughed at in order to achieve these outcomes. Is that what pros have to do to make these changes? With training aids or otherwise?
It's funny, because what I loved watching, because it's the first time I seen it yesterday when I watched the range session at Augusta, seeing his little funny drill. What is incredible about that, and what I tell anyone listening to this podcast, the one or two people that are, is that go out there and try to do a certain, let's call it swing thing with your swing, film it and see if it's any different, right? It's actually extraordinarily hard to look different, right? To be different, to have a different biomechanic in your swing. So for an elite player to be able to manipulate their swing and actually honestly stand the club up, get deeper with the arms, lay the club off more on transition, it's a very difficult thing to do and a good art to learn, because you're effectively changing your motor skill and changing your body mechanic, which is going to change the result. Whereas most people meet not even halfway, they meet like a quarter of the way. They kind of feel a little bit different, and that's it. They don't actually make a physical change. So when they go to their coach, the coach says, "Oh, you're a little bit, I don't know, you're standing up through the ball, right? Just feel like you actually compressed your chest a little bit." Well, if that's a pro, he actually goes to the course and actually squats and compresses maybe 2 to 3 inches just to get the feel and over exaggerate the move, and then hopefully you meet somewhere in the middle when it's game day. So yeah, I think it's an art to be able to do
that. Yes, because you've often mentioned that the problem with a feel, as opposed to a specific move, is that you'll wake up feeling different on a given day and then that feel just disappears. Yeah. Or is that just an excuse you offered me for being crap?
No, look, there's real truth to that, because your body is different every day. We all know that. The older you get, the more different it gets. It gets tighter and all the rest of it. So if you're just relying on a certain feel, that's extraordinarily dangerous. I mean, I explain it like touching your arm. with your hand. If you touch your arm with your hand and touch it 1,000 times, it goes numb a bit. So you've got to touch it harder to get the same sensation. And that's how a feel-orientated golf swing works. You start chasing what you thought you felt like, and then you can dig a hole because you go too far. Whereas a fundamental or a movement that you can kind of lock in or know where the actual area is, you can't overdo that because it's a checkpoint. So with Spiethy doing what he's doing at the moment, he's definitely trying to stand the club up and lay it off and get the arms a bit deeper, I think. And he's trying to do that as much as he can in a practice swing. And then when he hits it, as you can see, it's not quite the same as the exaggerated one. And he'll move away from that drill once him and his coach have done enough of it to achieve the change.
Yes, so he's either top 5 or miscut. Now, here's one for you. If Tiger wins, will it be the greatest sporting comeback in history, in your opinion?
Well, golfing history, we start there because I don't know the other history.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But from golfing history, and let me just add an additional one to that. If he does win, why would it be? Is it a better comeback than Hogan's?
Yeah, well, I think Hogan's is the only other one that kind of matches this, and it is better than Hogan's. There's
okay, you're going to need to justify your position because I've got a counter position.
Well, because of a range of things, like the Hogan accident was obviously really horrific and all the rest of it. He didn't have the medical attention. Excuse me, sorry. He didn't have the medical assistance and the knowledge that the doctors and everyone has these days. So he nowhere near had the ability to improve as quick as Tiger has or anything like that. But if you just look at Tiger's game and swing over the 25-year period, I really don't know any other golfer in the history of the game that has changed their swing so significantly and yet still can win purely due to body issues. He swings so different than it was 25 years ago. It's incredible. So for him to come back from now really having a leg that was questioned whether it would be chopped off or not, and regardless of how much it hurts when he transitions his weight or anything like that, in my opinion, it's a greater comeback than any other golfer because it's not the first time. It's about the 4th time, right? We forget that he broke his knee winning US Open. He tore ligaments out of his leg doing some SAS stuff or whatever it's called in America. His back's fused. He's come back from all of that and still won. This is the 4th time that he's coming back from, and this is horrific injury. So, and he's old. He's old. So yes, this, in my opinion, people might argue, but I think it's the greatest comeback by a mile if he wins.
So given all the discussion around transgender issues in sport, should bionic people be allowed to compete with others? Because in reality, I think I'm torn with the whole Hogan. Given that he had less medical knowledge back then, broken pelvis, broken ankle, but he also had longer time to get his groove back before his big year in 53. So Tiger, it is quite remarkable. But should there be a point where if you've got part robotics, you're not allowed to compete? Now, I'm not suggesting that he is robotic, but you'd think he has to be, given all the things that you've pointed out. He looks fit as a fiddle, but there's no way those legs are his. He's the new Steve Austin, I reckon.
Well, I don't know. If that's the case, if you can swing it like him and get some bionics in you that do it, I'm lining up. Sign me up. Just give me a new set of arms and torso and pelvis, and I'm happy to play like him if I'm bionic.
Now, only a couple more questions for the Caddy's Guide to Augusta. What's it like walking around when no one else is there?
Yeah, that I'm glad you asked that question because that to me has been my most precious memory of the place. I've been there 5 times, I think, and each time I've told this story before, but each time I stand on the 18th hole when everyone's gone, and I just look down at all the Georgian pines and the sun setting through the trees, and I just take a moment because I never know if I'm going to be back, and I haven't been back now since 2007 or wherever it is, and I may never be back. So walking around there with no one there. The caddy car park, as all caddy car parks are, is miles away from the clubhouse, right? And it's down near the back of the course. So you get to actually walk basically you leave your playing partner from really usually the practice fairway. You walk straight to the caddy barn, you take off your overalls, you hang them up in your locker, and then you walk through and around sort of Butler Cabin and the clubhouse. And then out to 18, and then across the course to your to the, I guess, the entrance on the far side. And if you do it late enough, there isn't a person around except some ground staff, obviously starting their work for the night. And it's calm and it's quiet and it's extraordinarily open. That's the part that is very different than when patrons are there. When patrons are there, you can really see the lay of the land and it doesn't look as open. But when there's no one there, it's an expanse of land that's just beautifully kept, right? And if you get there early in the week before the patrons have walked all on the outside of the ropes, it's all one colour. It's all incredibly, it's like having, best I can describe it, like you got a little backyard and you mow it and it looks nice. Well, imagine that's going for hectares. Like, it's just beautiful. So walking it at the end of that day and no one around and it's calm and you can just hear some of the birds, it's some of my greatest memories of the place because it's just quiet and it's like walking in heaven. Or how I imagine heaven would be if it is.
Oh, let's not go. If there is one, let's not go down that track now.
No. If there's a golfing heaven, that's it.
That is golfing heaven. And we always like to finish with a bit of a tale from the tour. And you mentioned something about Mickelson and a bet that you didn't know was a bet.
Oh yeah.
At Augusta. Yeah. So I want to finish with a bit of it because I think Mickelson deserves a little bit more airtime. And it's
he's having a rough run. He's having a rough run, the big fella, isn't he? Just on that, I hope he comes back at some point and gets to play again and is happy to be out there because it's a travesty if he never walks the fairways again. But anyway, the old Phil, we played there. When I say we, I didn't play at all. I just walked around because you're not even allowed to caddy at Augusta on the days that aren't tournament. You have to have a caddy from Augusta. So when I say a caddy at Augusta with Bads and Mickelson, I didn't. I just walked. Right? Now, I had a yardage book and I was telling him what to do, but I'm not allowed to touch the bag. I'm not allowed to pick up the bag. I'm just walking next to him. A few weeks out from Augusta, first time we go there. Bads is an amateur and I'm just an absolute young upstart, never seen the place. And, of course, Phil loves a little wager on things because it keeps him interested. So, and it's not the first time we'd played against him, or not the first time I'd lost money either. I'd lost a lot of money at La Quinta betting against him because I was chirping too much and started well and he got me. So I knew that he plays for keeps. But we had this game and it was split sixes, but which is just a game where you basically playing sixes and playing threes but he started betting with basically presses. Now, we hadn't bet with the way that he does presses, and it's very confusing. I won't bore people with it now, but basically as soon as you get automatic one down, you start again, you start another game. There's so many games going on, you can't keep track. So we go out there and we play, and we know we're doing okay, but then Phil makes a few birdies around the aiming corner, and we're in a bit of strife. And we're coming up about 16, and then so Phil just stops the game and he's like, oh, okay, so here's where we're at. You're down on this press, you're down on that press, you're level on this press, you got this. I'm like, oh, okay. So he goes, do you want to press the presses and do you want to do and we're just two little young kids, we don't know, but you can't say sort of no to one of the greatest players of all time. So we're like, all right, okay, press, yep, let's do it. So we're walking up, I think it was 16, and we hit a good shot. Bad sits a good shot in there and makes par. But then 17, 18, we start talking about it. I'm like, how much money have you got on your Bads? And Bads is like, oh, I've only got like 50. How much you got on you? I've got like 20. I said, I don't know. We're playing for, isn't it like $20 presses? I said, I'm trying to do the math. I think it's a fair bit. I don't really know. And he's like, yeah, I don't really know either. Anyway, we get up 18 and Bads wins 17 and makes a birdie. And so then Phil gets on 18 and just unloads with this diatribe of presses and and he goes, I'm going to press that press, I'm going to press the match, I'm going to do it. We're like, okay. So we walk up 18 and Bads hits it to about 8 feet. Phil hits it to about 12 feet. Phil misses his putt. And I walk up to Aaron and I said to him, mate, I got no idea how much we got on the line, but I got a feeling if you miss this, right, that we're swimming back to Australia because we have not got enough money on us to pay for whatever. Anyway, Bads is like, yeah. He goes, I'll just make it. How about that? I'm like, yeah, all right. So downhiller in the jaws, and Phil shakes our hands and walks off, and he goes, oh, geez, he goes, how lucky did you guys get? I'm like, yeah, lucky. And he goes, yeah, you were over $1,000 down, coming up 16. And he goes, and you've just walked off 300 up. And I'm like, yeah, good. So me and Bad's got the clubhouse. $1,000, like how the hell are we going to pay for $1,000? So yeah, be wary of the games you play with the big Phil, and understand what you're betting, because we would have been, we didn't have any money at that point, so yeah, we would have been stuffed.
Fantastic. And on that note, we're going to bring this Tenuous Links Masters Edition, The Caddy's Guide, to a close. Thanks everyone for listening. Remember, you can subscribe at golfbarons.com. We've got Season 2 on 9Gem this week and on 9 Now for the next few months. Season 3, as Shooter slaves away on it, is going to be ready to release sometime soon. Kipper, thanks very much for all your stories and tales from Augusta.
I can't wait for the week. I'm excited.
Oh, it's just going to be awesome. And until next time, Barons, add some swagger to your swing.
Goodbye.